If everybody could please begin to take your seats, please begin to take your seats.
Put that on.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. We've had a whirlwind day today, and we have only begun in JJPOC. I'm extremely excited, and I'm excited to see some nice younger members up here. I don't know why they're up here, but it's really nice, and we're going to have to make sure that they have to introduce themselves because we want them to feel like they're part of the group. And I was just talking to my new co-chair, who I'm going to introduce you to in a minute. But I was talking to him, and I said, we got all these titles. Why don't we just use our first names? Because I mean, it makes it a little bit more relaxed, because maybe we'll talk a little bit more and give our opinions a little bit more, except for Martha. Martha, don't worry about it. No matter whether you call her Miss Stone or Martha, she gives your opinion. So, but I wanna welcome everybody to JJPOC. And I'd like to introduce my new co-chair, deputy. Oh, no, wait. What's your title again?
Daniel.
Undersecretary. No, Undersecretary of OPM, Daniel Karpowitz. Daniel? There you go.
Thank you, Representative Walker. It's very good to be joining you here today. And I'm about 30 or 40 days into my new job as your undersecretary over at the Division for Criminal Justice Policy and Planning. So I'm grateful to see some of my outstanding colleagues there who work for you in that division. And I was just being asked how I'm doing. And I'm doing really, really well because the division is so outstanding, because JPOC is such a unique partner, and I'm very privileged to be able to join you here. And I can tell you, I spent most of my career next door in New York, and spent the last 4 or 5 years in Minnesota, and everywhere else I've worked. When we try to push the envelope and break ground on what we can do to be less bad and to do better, people say, well, begin by looking at Connecticut. Start here. I know you don't always feel that, because the people in this room are the people who are creative and pushing and demanding more and better. But I just wanted to share that with you when many of us in the rest of the country look for how to do things differently and do them well, we look to you all. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First and foremost, housekeeping. If you are here and you're speaking, please make sure that you press the button and your microphone is on red. Also, for you that are visiting with us, we are on television, so we are being taped, and I just want to make sure that you know that also. And I'm going to turn it over to Erica.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Erica Nowakowski with the University of New Haven, Executive Director of the Tau Youth Justice Institute, and just very excited to welcome our guests today and also to see such a full house. And before we begin with the day, I would like to request that the community expertise organizations, which are Martha Stone Center for Children's Advocacy, Janine Reed, Full Circle, Ann Smith from AFCAM, and Christina Caranta from Connecticut Justice Alliance. If you are here and you have young individuals and or parents or community members, please feel free to introduce them. And I would also request, you will see today that there are our young people who are here today are also sitting as part of the room and with the membership. And so if you can describe a little bit of how you all came, what that is, why we're doing that, and how what we can expect in the future. So I'm looking at you, Martha, because you're right here in the room. But if anybody else, Janine, Ann Smith, or Christina Caranta.
So thank you, Erica. We're excited today. For the first time, the youth are actually sitting next to somebody who's actually a member of the JJPOC. I think some of you have been here for a number of months, have seen the youth in the audience. They always have questions. They always love to come. They come every month. We have a cohort that comes regularly every month. And actually, we were going to share this next month, but some of them actually testified in the last week on one of the bills. So, you know, what we're trying to do is really get youth voice into this room and into the area. So I'd like each one of them to introduce themselves because we have some sitting here and we have some in the audience. And I'd like to recognize Stella Rose, our Youth Justice Coordinator also. So who wants to go first?
My name is Kaylon Miller. I am a member of CTRA. I'm a scholar there. I'm also a member of the Speak Up group. I am in grade 10 and I'm here happy to voice my
Sweetheart,
opinion.
you're going to have to use your outside voice.
I'm
okay?
sorry. I'm sorry. My name is Kaylon Miller. I am a scholar from CTRA. I'm in grade 10. I'm also a member of the Speak Up group. I am happy to be here to voice my opinion and hopefully contribute something useful to your guys' conversation.
Hello, my name is hello, my name is Gavin Roan. I'm from CTRA also, and I am a part of CCA or Speak Up. And it's nice to be here with all of you guys.
Hello, my name is Curtis Williams. I go to CTRA also. I'm part of Speak Up, and I'm glad to be here. I'm in 10th grade.
My name is Josiah Green, and I go to CTRA as well. I'm a 10th grader, and I'm happy to be here. Oh.
We gotta talk louder.
My name is Josiah Green, and I go to CTRA as well. I'm a 10th grader, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
If they are going to speak, they have to come up to the microphone because they cannot pick it up over the loudspeakers. So come on up. Brittany's going to give you her seat. Right there. We want to make sure you get on the camera, okay?
My name is Antoine Wedderburn. I also go to CTRA. I'm a 10th grader, and I'm happy to be here spectating.
My name is Heaven. I go to CTRA. I'm in 10th grade. And I'm happy to be here to support my friends. I'm Nazaya Jones. I'm also from CTRA and with Speak Up, and I am also happy to be here.
What grade are you in? What grade are you?
10.
Martha, did you rob the 10th grade from school?
CTRA, for those of you that don't know, is Connecticut River Academy. It's one of the magnet schools.
My name is Nazir King. I'm in 11th grade. I also go to CTRA. I'm a scholar there, and I'm part of the CCA.
All right. Noted he said he was a scholar there. Okay. I like that. There's a young lady back there with beautiful red braids. Are you part of the youth? That's no. Okay. All right.
All right, thank you, everybody, for that, and welcome to our young people. Before we begin, again, also Christina, I don't know if you're on, I don't have my computer, so I can't see if either Christina, Janine, or Ann, do you have any of the young participants of the Community Expertise Work Group that you'd like to introduce?
I don't see Janine, but I'm here. Ray Dancy from Full Circle Youth Empowerment Community Expertise Work Group. Really glad to be here, sitting next to my young associate.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so we will get started. We have, acceptance of the minutes, please, for February.
Moved. Move. Second.
Okay. Any corrections? None? Okay.
All right. Go right ahead.
Okay, all right. So today you have two presentations that are coming before you today. The first presentation is from the Department of Social Services. William Halsley, Deputy Director of Medicaid and Division Health Services. This is in regards to a presentation on the Medicaid waiver, specifically focused on the justice-related matters. Bill, William, are you on the, he's not on? Okay. 1 second, we're looking for him online.
I did not. The address that was in my invite says invalid.
Okay. There's a new one there, for those of the members, if they're watching, or there should be a new new link to you. Okay, so maybe we can start, hold on that, and then go to our panel presentation.
Before we go, could we just, did everybody get sent a new link?
They did.
So everybody just needs to,
Open up the new link.
yeah.
All right, so why don't we go to our panel presentation? Today, very excited. If you recall, a few months ago, we had a presentation from the Dalio Education, and they came and presented on their report of disconnected youth. And then today, a few after that presentation, and with ongoing communications and conversations, they invited or provided us an invitation to host Dr. Chico Tillman. And I would like to bring forward Amanda to please present and introduce Chico.
My name is Amanda Olberg, and I'm a Senior Portfolio Director with the Connecticut Opportunity Project, a social investment fund of Dalio Education. We're honored to have with us in Connecticut this week, Dr. Chico Tillman, PhD. Dr. Tillman is a national expert in violence intervention and prevention and a leading consultant and technical assistance provider in these areas. Currently, Dr. Tillman serves as Director of the Community Violence Intervention Leadership Academy, a first-of-its-kind training program designed to strengthen the leadership capacity of individuals leading community-based organizations, offices of violence prevention, and other components of the community violence intervention ecosystem, working tirelessly to quell violence in vulnerable communities. Its inaugural cohort was just hosted at the White House in February for their graduation ceremony. Previously, Dr. Tillman was the executive director of the Ready National Center for Safer Communities, a national technical assistance provider. The Ready model uses transitional employment combined with cognitive behavioral interventions to support and engage those at highest risk of becoming involved with gun violence. Among his accolades, Dr. Tillman has been recognized by President Biden for his work and is the recipient of the 2018 Congressional Veterans Brain Trust Award and the 2017 Ford Men of Courage Award. He was also named 2016 Practitioner of the Year and 2022 Alumnus of the Year by the University of Illinois at Chicago Criminology, Law, and Justice Department. Dr. Tillman, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I'd just like to introduce our moderator, and then we're going to get into the panel discussion. So our moderator for this afternoon's panel discussion is Ray Boyd. Ray is the co-founder of Next Level Empowerment Program and program manager for New Visions for Public Safety at the Law and Racial Justice Center. In November 2021, Ray was released from the Connecticut Department of Correction. He was incarcerated at the age of 19 and served 30 years. During his incarceration in 2015, Ray co-founded the Skills of Socialization program at the Osborne Correctional Institute, and in 2018, he co-founded the True Reentry program at the Cheshire Correctional Institute. Since his release, Ray has also volunteered his time with the United States Department of Justice as a speaker with the Fed Up program, Project Safe Neighborhood, and Project Longevity. Ray is also the author of The Model Inmate, which explores his time of incarceration. Ray is embarking on his new journey as the program manager at Yale's Law and Racial Justice Center. He looks to share his lived experience with all so that it may benefit the lives of others.
This is new to me, so I want to thank you all for having me here today to moderate this panel. We have a panel of great guests that have been doing some work in our state for some time now, and also we'd like to thank Dr. Tillman for coming this far from Chicago to share his experience with us to make our state and cities a much safer place for us all to reside in. I would like to take this moment for our panel guests to introduce themselves, if we can start with Dr. Tillman. And Dr. Tillman, if you can introduce yourself, the organization, and the work tied to the community youth gun violence.
Yes, sir. I think, first of all, I want to thank the young lady for the amazing introduction she gave me. If I could best describe the work that I do both locally in Chicago and across the country, it'd be one as a servant, a person who is tired of seeing Black and brown children die at an alarming rate and trying to mitigate and obliterate this epidemic, which we call gun violence. My current position is executive director of the Community Violence Intervention Leadership Academy at the University of Chicago Crime and Education Lab. And also I work as a partner with this Biden and Harris administration as a subject matter expert, helping them identify ways to implement racial equity throughout departments and looking at different ways we can implement strategies, approaches to mitigate gun violence in our most vulnerable communities.
Thank you, sir. If we can have Jacqueline Santiago Navarro introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jacqueline Santiago Nazario, and I'm with Compass Youth Collaborative. I'm the CEO for the past 5 years, but I have been at the agency for 23 years. I am happy to be the lead of an organization that works with people with lived experience, people that have given their lives to interrupt violence in the city of Hartford, and they do so by creating or building transformative relationships with youth. We provide them with different tools, such as cognitive behavioral skills, in order for them to really change the lives of youth and allow them to transition successfully into adulthood. And so we do have programs that are HVIP. We work with meeting youth after a traumatic incident at bedside. We also are case managing youth and providing services to them, connecting them to education, providing transitional employment so that they can practice those really critical self-regulation skills in a safe place, a place where they can fail and start again with no chances of getting kicked out, because we're relentless in our approach. And lastly, we also have social workers that are in-house working with these youth through traumatized youth that really need the helping hand in a safe place. So those are some of the areas that we focus in on when it comes to violence prevention efforts.
Thank you. Leonard Jihad.
Good afternoon. I'm Leonard Jihad. I'm founder and executive director of Connecticut Violence Intervention and Prevention Program, serving New Haven and Hamden. And we're incorporated in 2018. And what really framed the work was the work we did on the state level when I was a probation officer. I'm going back to 2006, working with Rep. Tony Walker and also Bill Carbone with the Raise the Age initiative. And where we raised the age from 16 to 18, removing the youth from the adult arena and putting them in the juvenile arena where they should have been, which is groundbreaking at the time, and influence other states and municipalities to follow suit. So our work in New Haven, we work with youth ages 13 to 24 that are engaged in the most risky activities. So by risky activity, we allude to shooters, so-called gang and group members, and also victims of community violence. We use CBT, we use mediation and relationship building capacities, to sustain the relationship, because you look at this population, they've been abandoned, neglected, abused, suffering from depression and trauma. And so in forging those relationships and sustaining those relationships, we can change the culture because, just because someone is in conflict with someone, they don't have to pick up a gun. So that's the narrative, and that's the work that we do here in New Haven. And again, there's never been a time that I've been doing the work where we've done more mediation than what we're doing, currently. Thank you.
Ed Calderon.
Good afternoon. How you doing? My name is Ed Calderon. I'm a case manager with Street Safe Bridgeport. We consist of 6 credible messengers that go out into the community to build relationship with at-risk youth, those that are affiliated with, gangs and groups. We also have a case management component where once we build that relationship, we bring them in for initial intake evaluation to assess their needs, and then we connect them to resources to address those needs. We have a Wednesday group, it's very vital, where these kids come, chat and chew, and we incorporate CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and social emotional learning into cultural awareness, just to educate them on dysfunction and what is normal, to hopefully guide them step by step out of their lifestyle and frame of thought. We also have an MOU with Hartford Healthcare Hospital and Yale New Haven Bridgeport Hospital, where we respond to shootings and gunshot victims and stabbings, and we go and help to mediate between hospital personnel and family members when they're upset and emotional and things of that nature. And also we try to stem retaliation as well. I believe our group is unique because all of our members are credible messengers, and unfortunately we had to go through that dysfunction ourselves. And by the grace of God, we have transitioned out of that dysfunction and are able to go back into our community to help these young men and women navigate out of that lifestyle as well.
Thank you all for introducing yourselves and your organizations. Given the fact that we come from different parts of Connecticut, there's always a different demographics and uptick in the gun violence that we see in the respective cities that we represent. if you can tell us, in your own words, what are some of the trends or changes that you see in the youth that you're serving in terms of the characteristics of the types of gun violence that you're seeing? Is it like more so of gang violence, or the school altercations, or drug disputes or things of that nature? And you could start, Jack. Oh, go ahead, Jacqueline.
So what we're seeing in New Haven, the youth really get a bad name when it comes to community violence, more so in New Haven. The average age of the person that's getting shot, and we really don't know who did the crime until they're convicted, but it's upwards of 27 to 28 years old for Black males. Hispanic males is a couple years older than Caucasian males. That's upwards in the early 30s. So they like to blame youth because they're a vulnerable population. However, we say that we're working with youth ages 13 to 24. Just a few years ago, we were working with the ages of 16 to 24, but we knew that we had to change it to 13 to address some of the emerging offenses, more so stolen cars. And so now we're even going back to like 11 to 12 years old. We're getting referrals from juvenile probation, from the police, from another local state, and even federal officials to our program to address that. 11 and 12 years old. And then we had to get training and things like that to deal with maturation and, to try to address this population. So we're always evolving. So that's one of the target groups that we've had to address. And the other one that's emerging is young women that are entering high school. And we started a program called Makerspace in New Haven to deal with the anger that these young ladies are facing. There's a lot of community fights, there's in-school fights, and now they're bringing the fights into local restaurants. And the Chamber of Commerce has reached out that some of these, businesses close after school because of fights that are going on. And again, it's those same factors that are contributing to that, abuse, neglect, trauma, depression, everything. So those are the things that we're attacking. In our program, we try to address what we can, and then, through our intake assessment and referral process, we refer out and then communicate with, other nonprofits and probation, parole, and other agencies. So those are the two evolving populations. The 11 to 14-year-olds, I would say, that are involved in stolen cars. And we know that that's a gateway to other offenses. Stealing a car, then it's possessing a gun, then it's carjacking, burglaries, and other things. So that's what we try to get ahead of through CTVIP.
Thank you. Jacqueline.
Hello, everyone. Jackie Santiago Nazario again from Compass Youth Collaborative. We are seeing some similar trends as in New Haven, and we have seen that last year there was probably about closer to 70% of the youth were over 25, and now we're seeing that in 2022, 20 of the 38 homicides were under the age of 25. So we're seeing that it's getting younger. We also have been seeing that the younger youth are becoming involved in more violent incidences and carrying weapons. And I want to take a pause there for a moment too, because I think when I start characterizing our kids, I always want to make sure that people don't use those characteristics to dehumanize them. And I think that's really important to me. First and foremost, I think these kids are lacking some guidance and have so many other influences, such as social media, that we've seen a huge uptick on, and a lot of violence really starts online and escalates offline. But I think that these kids all have potential and are worthy of our support and our resources. And I want to make sure that I'm clear about that, because these kids are worth our investment. And so while I'm saying all of these things, that they're engaging in these behaviors, it by no means should paint a picture of them in a criminal manner. And so We are seeing also more women involved. The hospitals have also reported that there are more stabbings occurring. So it's not just firearms that are taking place here. And we see, not only do we see the stolen cars are being used for violent offenses. And there's a huge number of youth on drugs, opioids in particular, in pill form and other forms. So we're seeing the effects of that in the community as well. But I don't want to take everyone else's time, so I'll just say those as my points for now.
Thank you. Ed, can you tell us what you are witnessing in the city of Bridgeport?
Wanted to reiterate and really focus on social media. We call them social media wars, where pride and ego become a factor and they're going back and forth with each other, and that spills out into the streets. It's mostly, I would say about 15, 20 years ago, it was more gang, drug-related violence that occurred. Now it's more emotional and pride and things of that nature that once again stems from the social media for what we're seeing down in Bridgeport.
Thank you. Dr. Chico Tillman, can you describe for us what you're seeing that's happening on a national level to reduce youth gun violence and improve the outcomes of our youth involved in the criminal justice system?
I think one of the biggest things we have to consider is we forget we just came out of a space where we were sheltering in place and a lot of youth were disconnected from human connection. And I think what we saw when we came out of that was an uptick in violence among youth because there was no human interaction. So now if there were challenges, as the individual that spoke prior to me talked about on social media, now there was time to engage. And what we really have to address is social norms that are being created and social constructs where individuals who normally wouldn't respond in violence are pressured to respond in a particular way in order to survive in their own community. So if you disrespect me on social media, even if I don't want to respond in a negative way, the pressure by all of the people in my environment knowing that I have this conflict and I haven't done anything resolved it becomes unbearable, and they tend to react instinctively in the moment, and it ends up being in a negative way. I think we have to think of ways to disrupt those things, and also we have to think of ways to safeguard our youth and our children from having access to firearms.
Thank you very much. A lot of times we tend to look at ways to assist the young men and women that are coming through the system after they have already been touched by the system. What can we do on a preventative level with our cities, municipalities to prevent these things from ever happening, to prevent these children from even getting in the backseat of a police car, let alone before a judge in the courtroom?
I think one of the things that we can do to be more preventative is to use those skills that we know work, those evidence-based programs. And we keep alluding to cognitive behavioral therapy. And one thing that I knew when I worked in probation is if someone was arrested and went to court, one of the conditions were always to go, to a CBT program. So why do we wait? Why do we wait until after someone is arrested, to attack their or even address their value system, things that make them angry, their triggers. So when we do that, we do it effectively, then they can de-escalate themselves, in real life. And we model that behavior and we even practice it when we do CBT. So why do we wait? So with youth who have these emerging brains and everything else, we can get ahead of this because, I mean, there's a lot of adults who could use some CBT also. When you're driving in traffic and someone cuts you off, you have to take that second, to calm yourself down and everything. So, for the most part, we're able to do that, because, we're not as impulsive, but, we really should get ahead of that. And I was hoping that maybe it could even be, not to say a curriculum, but something that we can even use in the public school system. You know, why wait until you get in trouble? Get ahead of it. I'm a true believer in CBT. There's a lot of modalities that can be used. We use Rewire, which can be used right there in the community. But again, you know, what really makes you angry? What's your trigger? And, you know, if someone says something that disrespects you, what's your riskiest thought? What's your least risky thought? Okay, so where are you in between? How can you address it? And the more that you're able to do this and model it, the more successful you'll be, you know, in real time, in real life.
I'll just piggyback on some of the CBT. I think when you learn cognitive behavioral skills, it's really important for the adults to be able to be models for that. And I think violence is a multi-pronged issue with many, many root causes. And so we have to address it as such. It is a public health issue. There are issues of poverty at play here. And so I think we need to really look at all of the different resources that are lacking in communities and address it that way as well. But cognitive behavioral skills are so important. We've been working with our team on it. And as I looked at the data and said, oh, we're not using this skill called label our feelings, why not? And they said it's the hardest one because we're scared about what those feelings might unleash, right? And so I think that's the case for not only adults, but also our youth. And do they have those trusted mentors, right? And so I'm going to talk a little bit about cultural awareness and really having trained people that can really navigate different opportunities in the community and having opportunities to reach out to youth before, during, after a situation. So that we can have people that are reaching out on a regular basis, just having conversations, not fearful of going out into communities where our youth are to get them. The reality is that we are in a community and a nation where we have so many competing resources online or working or doing other things where they're not engaging like they traditionally did. We need people that are going to be courageous, passionate, and willing to go into neighborhoods and reach out to these kids, not only in times of trouble, but in times of peace to actually build relationships, because these kids don't want to know what you know until they know that you care. And there are not enough of us out there on a regular basis showing these kids that they matter and that we care.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Dr. Tillman.
I think I get asked this question often as I journey throughout the country. And I chuckle to myself a lot of times because the answer is obvious. And the easy answer, of course, is to talk about interventions that we use, which many of us had never been in contact with when we were children. If you think about, I hate to date myself, but I'm 53. I never heard of cognitive behavior therapy. What I did hear about was safe communities. What I did hear about was programs where I was nurtured with love. What I did hear about was safe spaces where I could learn and engage with people who had an investment or interest in me. I think sometimes we try to create or recreate the wheel when we understand what works, because all we have to do is look across the aisle or look across the neighborhood to more affluent communities, healthy communities. Why are they thriving? Why aren't we talking about some of these affluent communities? I know you have them in Connecticut because we have them in every state. Yeah. Are they talking about CBT, CBI, intervention? No, because they create an environment where you can learn, where you can grow, where you can thrive, where children can be children and have fun. So really, it has to be an uproot of the infrastructure, and we need government level involvement. Let me look, the biggest challenge with all of the interventions is they go to a space like a Compass and they had this wonderful experience, but Compass only could keep them for 4 hours. The next 20 hours, they're back in they're back in an environment where they're filled with anxiety and fighting for their life, and they're back in survival mode. We have to uproot that in these communities. And as adults, we have to begin to reinforce and begin back to love on our children.
Thank you. I guess I want to kind of combine what Jackie and the doctor said. That's why I said it's very vital that these young men and women have mentors that have been there, you know, that have experienced what they're experiencing, and that are still willing to be side by side with them, not just in a safe place, but in their environment, in their dysfunction, even within their homes sometimes. You know, it's very vital that we walk them through everything while we're teaching them these coping skills. You know, these coping skills, once again, you know, if they're not practiced with them, you know, and for them, it might not work. You know what I mean? So it's, like I said, to piggyback, we need to take what we have learned now, yes, but also remember, love is the key, right?
Yeah.
So my next question would be, outside of the cognitive behavior treatment, what are some of the other specific programs that are moving the needle, and what are the critical components of those programs that you feel as those working?
So I can speak to a couple of different program that are working. In particular, meeting youth bedside at the hospital has been something that's been critical for our organization. In the incident of gun violence, Compass does receive a phone call from one of the 3 hospitals in Hartford. We're connected to all 3, and at that moment, we deploy our crisis team to meet a youth. The reason why we go there at that time is because it's when they're most vulnerable. It's when they're most scared. It's when they don't have an advocate to really help them navigate the situation that they're in, but also work with the police, deal with their families. There's just a myriad of different things that we are able to help with. And so we're there at that critical moment. Sometimes it also involves, most of the time it involves also working with family members. In addition to working with those family members, we're also really keeping our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the community. And so we're trying to figure out if there's any retaliation, and if there is, really figuring out which team, deploying our other team to work with the community to de-escalate those tensions so there aren't more deaths or more injuries. And then there's a follow-up program to that. We also ensure that upon discharge, we're partnering with skilled doctors that can meet the youth at home to help them with their wound care, to help them perhaps with the mental health pieces. And once they are in a stable place after 6 months or so, we're able to we're able to get them into our program, our 4-year program. And I just wanted to make a note of the fact that when someone's traumatized, when someone's been through all of this hurt and pain, we cannot expect that this is going to be resolved in a year. And oftentimes funding is linked to 1 year, and tell us what miracles you can perform, in that 1 year after that, right? And so we know that youth's journey is never linear. It dips, it comes back up. Think about yourselves if you've ever been on a diet and have been tempted by that cookie and, fall, and then you pick yourself up and try it again, right? Sometimes with your buddies, and for in this case, it's with a peace builder, help you to get on that path so that you can really learn those skills. So once they're in our core program, it's about changing behaviors, changing mindsets. That takes time, 4 years at least, to get them to the start line. And I think many of the programs that we have now are designed for kids that are ready. Can you get yourself there? Can you, come this way? We have a picture of how they're ready, but no one's working with them to overcome all those self-regulation, all that doubt, all the things that they're coming with. And so we really have to start making it easier and having a hand-holding phase with our youth until we can get them ready enough to participate in the programs as they are designed right now. Our programs are not reachable for our population right now. And so we do have that as a hospital violence intervention program. I mentioned the core program for 4 years, and I'll leave it there so that my partners can also speak.
Jahab, before you go, I want to change the question for you. You worked on Raise the Age, and I would like to know what key strategies and policies that municipalities in the state can do to advance what the organizations here in Connecticut are doing with our youth and gun violence.
Well, thank you and no thanks. I was getting ready for the other question. Brother Ray. Ray and I have a relationship that goes back. So,
He was my counselor, you guys.
Wow.
that's right. That's right. And to break for that, I'm so proud of Ray because that was back in the 90s when I was his unit counselor back in Cheshire Correctional Institution. And he's made that change, through reentry. Hit the ground running in the last 2.5 years, from incarceration, 30 years to where you are today. And I appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, bless you. So
I
I'll
don't
just say-
think everybody knows what the True Unit really is about, but I just thought I'd put that out there. Okay.
See, but so just to go back to Raise the Age, I was given the charge by Commissioner at the time, Bill Carbone. He knew some of my history. I'm a football coach. I'm a foster dad, and he said we have this new initiative. I want you to take the lead in, and Len, do what you have to do to make it work. And the only thing I knew how to do was to build relationships, and so I use that as a basis, for what we did, for what the work was at the time. 16 to 17-year-olds were getting arrested within 6 months of being on adult probation. 60% recidivism rate at that time. We were totally failing the youth. And so in the next year with juvenile services, they were kept in the adult arena, but given that specialized unit under myself and another probation officer, we brought it to 0. So 60% to 0. And Ms. Walker was saying, what was the magic? I said, it's no magic. I said, it was just basically sustained relationships. That's all it was. And so when I talked to you, they said that everyone leaves them. They just felt abandoned. And one thing I knew as a football coach, that you go through the season, you lose some games, but at the last game, all the kids would be crying. Not because they lost the game, because they lost the relationship. And they never thought that they would get that relationship back from their teammates and also the coaches. And so when I talk to youth about treatment, relationships with clinicians, and they would say that they would open up, they'd finally open up, and then after a few months or 6 months or whatever, the clinician would leave. So it was an intern, it was a treatment provider that went to another program where they got promoted, and then they would have to start the process over and over again. So they said, I'm tired of telling my story. And so, just like Jackie alluded to, evidence says it takes about 6 months to build a relationship. So before you can get to, a real assessment and then make the referrals and get that trusted relationship, we're talking 6 months. And a lot of these grants are 1 year. So after you build that relationship, you get the referrals and everything. And then if the grant is not renewed, then you have to get rid of staff and everything else. So you're starting all over again with that process. So they're saying 3 to 4 years of engagement of the highest risk to change their trajectory. Because if you don't, after 6 months, after a year, if you abandon them again, you're going to see them again with a new referral, probably from the court. So we sustain those relationships. And I'll just say, just to wrap it up, sometimes we get youth, high-risk youth, and they say, I don't want your program, and, I'm good. I said, that's fine, but I'll check up on you. I'll just see how you're doing. And I always ask them one question. When you want me to stop caring about you, you let me know. And no one ever says stop caring about me.
Thank you. Dr. Tillman, I assume you had some was able to spend some time here in the state of Connecticut and possibly visit some of the cities that these organizations represent today, what would be, through your observation, some of the things that you saw that wasn't working and some of the things that you saw that has the potential to work and thrive in the future?
Let me, I'm a firm believer in taking a strength-based approach. And what I want to say is that I did get an opportunity to go to New Haven and visit with CTVIP, and I did get an opportunity in Hartford to visit with Compass. And I will say you have two phenomenal programs with the foundation to make generational change. But it's up to you to invest in it and to support it in order to do what it potentially can do. But I have to tell you, the gap is neither CTVIP or Compass can solve this problem by themselves. They need the connectivity to other components within the ecosystem. They need the leverage to be able to expedite processes for individuals that's at the highest risk. When you get an individual at the highest risk who's been neglected, who's been turned away, they need to be able to walk them to the front of the line and get this person help, because there's a sense of urgency, because somebody can die if they don't get help. So we have to leverage our access to all these different agencies so they can get into somebody for substance use disorder. They can get into somebody for mental health. They can get into somebody for SNAP or for housing, because it's the difference between life or death, where another person walking through that door it might be casual. They want to just move, or but with them, you have to support them. And another thing too, another challenge or area of opportunity is both of them have some part-time workers. It breaks my heart that a person is putting their life on the line, disarming people at the highest risk who are armed, may be under the influence of a substance. And if they harmed, if they shot, if something goes wrong with them, they don't even have health insurance. If they get shot or if they were to die, they don't even have life insurance. We gotta find a way to resource these organizations and show them we appreciate them, so that we care about the people who are these superheroes that's putting their life on the line each and every day. So really what we need is cohesion and that bond between every component of the ecosystem. And I believe you are in a space to take the lead and convene and bring all of those components together to make them work together so that they can do the important work that's life-saving work in our most vulnerable communities.
I think that thank you for those remarks. And that's definitely critical in our community. And I hope that our legislators are paying attention to what Dr. Tillman said, because it's not just coming from, the organizations, it's coming from someone who's nationally recognized to say these things and speak about them. And it's something that, when we going into policy and building legislative, what we should see for our future, for the men and women that are doing the work in our community on ground level. And this will take me to my next question with what we're seeing in the city of Hartford right now, where, citizens are arming themselves to protect the community. That should be the job of our municipalities, our police departments, our state police, and other government agencies. There should never come a time where our communities should be arming themselves for the safety of their property or their family and loved ones. So with that said, Ed, can you tell me, in your words, one of the experiences that you may have had to deal with regards to Dr. Tillman's remarks on disarming someone or having to show up at a hospital where things weren't going the way that you normally expect them to do when you arrive at a situation like this?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I really wanted to give you a hug for what you just said. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, when we get called to the hospital, obviously, tensions are high, and we do expect, emotions to play a part. But sometimes these young men either come to finish the job on this individual, and we have to try to intervene the best way possible. And by the grace of God, sometimes we know some of these young men or their family members that are there with them, and we're able to talk them down. And sometimes the family themselves become so irate because they can't get the information that they want. Is my family member alive? Can you please tell me something? These doctors won't say anything. So that's where we come in once again to try to, calm the storm per se. And we're able to go back and get that information to relay it to the family so that there isn't a riot in the middle of the emergency room, or once again, family members are arriving again, rivaling against each other. So these are the situations that unfortunately we face, and we do our best, with the numbers that we have, because like you said, half of us are part-time, and some of us are full-time. So we're called at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and we're rustling up coming from the city trying to, get to the hospital as fast as possible.
And also, it's important that the legislators also know, and the individuals in the room also know, that most of the men that were formerly incarcerated are coming home doing this work. They have a passion to do it, and that's why they do it. I'm pretty sure they can find other things to do if that wasn't their passion. And also, most of them are returning to the communities that they left, and they're not moving outside of their neighborhoods, once they reach a certain status. And there's a distaste for some of these individuals that reside in that community. Either they're looked at by the younger men that are growing up in the community that are participating in acts of violence as the police, because they did show up at a hospital to quell an issue between families or rivals that may have arise out of the act of a gun violence. So it's important that we value the men and the women that are doing these service by looking at trying to get them at least some insurance to cover themselves, and so that they could be taken care of if anything was to happen to them. I think I'll close with this. I would like to know if you guys have had the chance to read the report, Connecticut's Unspoken Crisis, and what's your perspective and reflection on that report.
Read it backwards and forwards. There was nothing really, there weren't many things that were surprising. When you work in the field, you recognize that there are a lot of kids falling through the gaps. Yet, there's such value in seeing this research done in a cohesive manner in the way that it was done, and combining multiple sources of information, which led me to understand the importance of us collaborating to share data on the progress of youth in a timely manner. And so I think that so many times we are worried about confidentiality. I totally get it. And there are ways that we have to find a way that we're able to communicate information on a real time so that we can really address the issues of our youth. We sometimes, I've seen in communities where we're working with one group, one child, and several groups have their hand on them. Yet there are a whole bunch of them that no one knows about because they're severely disconnected. They're not going to school. They're not taking advantage of employment opportunities. They're homeless and facing so many different risk factors. And the bottom line is that it's happening all over the state, and the state is losing opportunities to maximize this potential. And so that's what I bring about from here. If we don't invest in our youth, it's not only costing us monetarily, it's costing us in lost talent.
Just to echo what Jackie was stating, none of it was surprising, but it is my hope that the programs, municipalities, local, state, federal, could be more aligned and be more intentional in the work, because a lot of times we're tripping over one another. repeating services, wasting time, wasting resources. Something happened in the community, they're gonna knock on the door, then there's a similarly situated program knocking on the door. If we're more intentional and we talk, we can get ahead of this. And it's like Jackie, I was thinking when Jackie was talking about, we have programs for youth that get in trouble, the high risk. We have programs for them. And then they have a younger sibling who parent wants to get the younger sibling in the program, but they're not high risk. So why can't my good child get into the program? You hate to tell them to go break a window and just wait for the police to come, but, how can we do something for those kids that are not high risk, but are still at risk? You have the kids that are doing really, really well and they're positive, they're doing great in school and everything, and there's programs for them. But you have that percentage in the middle. I just call it like the 85% of the kids that are that are at risk. And they feel ignored. And so we have to be more intentional with them. And we have the tools, but there's things that we could do better. And I'm going to go back to my prior work. Juvenile probation and adult probation could work. They could be more aligned. Department of Corrections and parole, they could be more aligned. But if you're in Department of Corrections, you go on parole, and then you go to probation, they're using 3 different assessment tools, which they're not sharing the information. Even in the city of New Haven, we have case management models. Some are using Apricot, some are using VOCs, and some are using other models, and we're not sharing the information. So even the small municipalities, again, we can do better. So I'm hoping that this report will shine a light on the things that we can do. They focus on 119,000, and that's a lot. And they say that you can fill up 2 Fenway Parks, with 119,000 people when you think about that in form of numbers. So there's work to be done. There's a lot of good stuff in that report, and all we have to do is listen to it. But the answers are in the room, and we just have to follow up.
Thank you.
What caught my eye, yes, they, hit on every factor, but they had 9 executive recommendations on how to fix the problem. And that's what caught my eye. That's what I paid attention to, because they were breaking down those recommendations for us. The coordination, between programs. In the city of Bridgeport, we're so duplicated. We have so many, programs that are duplicated and not streamlined. I always say this, and I say this, in different realms. We have the DA, the FBI, gang task force. When they want a kid that's doing wrong, they all get in one room, huddle around a table, share information, share files, share surveillance, share everything. Why are we not doing the same? You understand?
Especially when we know who these kids are.
When we know who these kids are. And in the recommendations, in the Dalio recommendations, they suggested, once again, to record, monitor. It starts in school too. We're able to sit there and account for the kids and know who these kids are from, early stage, and being able to try to follow them and help them during this time, but as a group, collectively. Right now, we're crabs in a bucket, fighting for funding, and then we're duplicating efforts at the same time just to gain that funding, you know what I mean? And no one's empowering one another. We're not helping one another to help that young man, and that's or the young woman, which is important. So those recommendations, like I said, was something that we took to heart, and I know RISAP is in the process of trying to implement as much as can, but it takes a village.
Thank you. Dr. Tillman, if you would like to comment on what you've heard.
I want to reiterate like some of the things that my colleagues said. I really want to see the response more so than to continue to discuss the problem, because what you're hearing is different. It's almost like the Bible and the gospel. It's 4 versions of the same person's life. So we keep talking about the problem and the issue, as if we don't really know what's going on. And it's time to move to action and start doing something about it. And it takes real to be thoughtful and to make real investment. And not to get all spiritual, but it's say where your treasure is, your heart will be also. So if the most important document I want to see when I look at an organization is not the mission, all of that. I want to see the budget. Because if you show me the budget, you show me what's really important to you. A lot of people say they want to stop violence, but they don't invest in it. Now, if I'm not investing in it, then I can't expect the return on it. We talked earlier, and I have the fortune of working with an economist, one of the most renowned economists in the world, Jens Ludwig. A homicide costs anywhere from 1.2 million to 1.5 million dollars per homicide. When you think about law enforcement, investigating, ambulance, hospital, prosecution, probation, pre-sentence, all of that, it costs about, for every homicide and a shooting costs around 800,000. For every shooting or homicide prevented by these organizations, it's saving the city and the state millions, upward close to billions of dollars. Maybe that language will resonate, because if you access the individuals at the highest risk and you dissuade them from engaging in violent behavior, then there's cost savings based upon that investment that you spent the prior year on what? Resolving the issue that a homicide caused. And just I want to say one more thing. I would be remiss if I didn't say that, especially for your power. I'm system impacted. I served 16 years, 3 months in prison for introducing two people. And that's one of the reasons the President of the United States honored me, because the legislation he wrote put me in that position. And him and our own Senator Dick Durbin said they're doing everything to undo the harm they caused with the 94 and 95 bill. So when you look at me and see me, you're seeing potentially what every person at the highest risk could be. Because at one point I was viewed as somebody at the highest risk. So Dr. Tillman right now is really a client. The next Dr. Tillman is a client with Compass or CT VIP, and all you have to do is invest in them and allow that potential to be unleashed.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank our guests that came here today. I'd like to thank Jackie Santiago Nazario from Compass, Leonard Jihad, the Executive Director of CTVIP, Edward Calderon, Case Manager for Street Safe in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and Dr. Chico Tillman, Director of Connecticut's Violence Intervention Leadership Academy in Chicago. Also, I'd like to thank the Juvenile Justice Policy Oversight Committee and the TAL Youth Justice Institute for allowing me to be here today and our guests to be here today, so that our legislators can gain a little bit more insight into the work that we do on a daily basis and the risks that we take. And I thank you all. Any questions?
Come on, Ray, you can get to it in that. Come on.
Any questions?
There you go. Can I just jump in?
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, I thank all of you for what you said today. And the best part of it is it didn't stay here. When I said it's on television, it's on television. It's on Facebook. It's out there for people to see and hear. Your voices are so important for what we are trying to work on and talk about. The program will also air over and over again, and if you want a copy of it, we will send you a copy so that you can put it out there for us too. You've hit so many things that we've talked about, we've been working on, and we need to work harder. There is no question about it. Money is the core. No, I'm not going to argue with you on that. It's the money. But it's also got to be the fact that there are so many voices behind that demand for money. It cannot be 5 legislators, 6 legislators. It's got to be something that comes from the community. It's got to be something that's coming from other departments of government. It's also got to be coming from the cities. I mean, if you look around here and listen, the thing that was very fascinating to me was the fact that we have Hartford, New Haven, Bridgeport. And getting all of you together provided us a wealth of knowledge. But how often do we do that? How often do we really sit down and talk about what are we doing and are we getting at what we want to? What is our target and what are we trying to accomplish? That's so important because when we started, I'll get even more deep. You know, the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus created youth violence dollars. And what we did was we said, we're going to put some money out in the community to try and reinforce the community activities, get them engaged and provide the money. It wasn't a major bucket. There's no question about it. It wasn't a major bucket, but it was us trying to get out there in the community, get people to talk and try and figure out what are the opportunities and the resources. And we got some. We got some that are up here today, some that are working today. But it's not enough because we need to have a more of a base where we're all talking about the same things. One of the things we need to talk about is, and we didn't bring it up today, but how are we working with the police? And I had the pleasure of talking to Dr. Tillman earlier and talking about the relationships of the police in our communities. And it's different in each one of our communities that we had today. I guarantee you. But that's a very, very important thing for us to discuss. And we have to be honest. Connecticut has 169 towns. And we wonder why we don't all get together enough. We got a lot of independent entities going on that do not communicate. How do we get that communication going? Because if we don't do that, we're all going to be spinning around doing all these things and not connecting. But we all have the right thing in our hearts. But we got to go a little further than that now. We got to organize. We've got to evaluate. We got to see, are we doing what we need to be doing for our kids? And what can we do to make it better? Somebody mentioned crabs in a barrel. A lot of times, we are our worst enemies too. We talk about each other badly sometimes because they got the money, but I didn't. So, I mean, there are a lot of more things that need to be talked about in this subject. And we got to come to these meetings and talk about them. I have begged you all to talk. Let's bring it here. Let's bring it home. Let's be honest. Let's not take it personal. Let's save our kids. Let's save our communities. Let's talk honestly about what's going on. And you got a platform. It's been here. You guys got to use it. Don't come in here to destroy. Come in here to build. Come in here to make a difference and change. Ray, I wish you had talked about True Unit. That is something that if nobody knows about this, I want you to make sure we will have it here because I want you to talk about what you did for kids and women. Kids and women, that didn't go right. Men and women,
Yeah.
but you gave them dignity in the heart of despair, which brought them back to life. That's what we need to do in our communities. Maybe we take what you did there and we spread it out. But we got to do it together, people, please. We really do. So I'm going to, just before we leave, I want, because we postponed DSS because this is too blasted important. It really is too much. I just want to ask, talk to me about how do we work with the police department? Because by the way, this committee is supposed to have 3 policemen here. Do you see them here? Have we locked them out? What is the problem? I've talked to the commissioner of DESP, and he is committed to bringing them back here because we can't be enemies. We've got to work shoulder to shoulder. And we got to figure out what are we doing wrong so that we're not making it a combination of conversations. So the gentleman and lady, can you tell me a little bit about your relationships with the police and what's working and what isn't? I don't know what's working. We just want to know what's working and how do we go further. Jackie?
I guess I can start. I can say that we have a good working relationship with our police department, and that has taken many, many years of building trust. When you think about, when I think back to 2008, when we started this program, and we talked to the police department about working with formerly incarcerated individuals, their first reaction was like, you mean the guy that I used to chase all the time? Like that one? You want me to work with him to keep our communities safe? And we were like, yep. And so we spent years proving that this intervention works, you know, and so there were times when the police saw themselves in very difficult, precarious situations with the community and were calling to see how they could help. Now, I think we're at a place where there's always, room for improvement. Most understand that they cannot arrest their way out of this problem. That you continue to arrest people without rehabilitation, without services, without opportunities, that they're going to come back into your community. And so we have partnered in ways where if there are community events, we're meeting and talking because we're the peace ambassadors. We're going to be out there representing our community, talking to community and making sure that they know that we're there as an outlet and a support for them. And anytime there has been incidences where youth are in the community and maybe misguided or doing other things, if they feel that Compass can make a difference, they're picking up the phone and they're giving us a call so that we can intervene before they end up in handcuffs. I think those are major opportunities. I think also the mayor, I think it's a systems thing. So the mayor has also invited us to the table. For instance, our chief has just resigned and will be assisting with with handing over the reins, and has asked Compass to facilitate a youth listening session so that we can provide our input on who the next chief is. And I think that is critical, having opportunities for them to really listen to our youth is a big piece of support as well. So those are some of the ways in which we're partnering.
Thank you. And I just I just want to give a shout out to Waterbury Police Department because they're listening to us right now. And I think Commissioner Higgins is listening too. So at least I'm finding out that the people are listening. Leonard.
It's taken some time. And so I'll just say, going back to my probation days, and my good friend, Steve Avignon was here as my partner when I started. He can attest to this. So if someone was on probation and there was a homicide or they were involved in a homicide, more so a victim, I would get like 5 calls from the police department. And we're going back to the early 2000s. Shooting task force, detective division, intelligence, everyone would call. They're like, what's going on with this guy? I'm like, you're right across the hall. Don't you all talk? So they really didn't talk to one another, and they didn't really trust an outside agency. So any information that we got was one-sided. They wanted information from us, but didn't share information. So over the years, through ComStat and other initiatives, Well, we were able to knock that down. The chief of police in New Haven is Carl Jacobson. He's a great friend of mine. Actually, he's in my phone saved as Sergeant Jacobson because, you know, he went up through the ranks and, you know, we've been friends, you know, ever since. And he always got it. But the problem is there's a culture set, but if Carl Jacobson leaves, who's going to step up? Are they going to have a different mindset? So it has to just go further than just personal relationships. You know, it has to be, you know, kind of a culture. And Chief Jacobson gets it. He gets it. We have a basketball tournament out in summertime in Newhallville in New Haven. The heat index was like 105, and he went and bought water and ice and everything on his own dime. And he says, Len, can I get the water? I said, bro, it's hot. They'll take the water. And a couple guys were like, you kicked in my door. He said, you know, I don't want your water. And I said, be patient. He came back around. He said, Jha, can you go get me one of those waters? It was hot out there. So now it's just a tradition where they'll go out there. And that's just, you know, again, relationship building. And Carl Jacobson, he's a great guy. You know, New Haven was great. Hamden took a little bit longer. I would go to ask for a police report, and they were like, no, go to the court. So, you know, Hamden's jurisdiction is Meriden. So I have to drive past Hamden to drive to Meriden because they didn't want to be collaborative enough. But again, that was earlier. So now they have a new chief. The prior chiefs, we had a great relationship also. But it's going to take some time. So again, it's just trusting relationships, but it has to go further than just individual. You know, people have to be able to come to the table and be able to trust. So I don't know if it has to be official through MOUs or whatever that we're going to work together, you know, but there has been progress, and we do have a trusting, what I'll say is officially a one-sided relationship where they'll give us information. We don't give them information, you know, because that'll compromise our standing in the community, you know. However, if someone is tearing up our community so bad and we can't get ahead of it, I, as someone who used to work in law enforcement, you know, will say, police, you need to do what you have to do to get this person off the street.
Just to let you know, the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus Youth Violence gives money to 3 different PALs in the state to try and foster that relationship with the kids in the community and stuff. I happen to have a policeman that's sitting next to me who keeps poking me and saying, let me talk, let me talk. Retire, oh yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Boyd,
Great.
for, you know, what you've been able to bring before us today or help us today. Dr. Tillman, I just want to thank you for mentioning, show me the budget, because that means a lot. Because what matters is, we sit up here sometimes and we run our mouths a lot about what we need in our communities, but it doesn't show it in the investment that we put in our inner communities, especially our inner city communities. We fail to put the proper amount of funding in those. So when it comes to the budget, we need to practice a little harder in regards to the investment for that. Because unfortunately, it only resonates when it affects us up here. If it don't affect our community, then we don't always put what we need into the communities that need what is needed in order to get some of the programs that we all talk about all the time in JJPOC. And I also just want to commend the members of JJPOC in regards to the hard work that they put in, because it is recognized. And I don't say that just because I'm a member of JJPOC, it's because I've met and I sit with members and I get to understand where they are when it comes to making changes for our youth. And I thought I was teaching my brother right here a little bit about the Dalio report. He already got it in his phone. I'm talking, he goes, yeah, no, I got it right here already. So it's good to see that our youth are paying attention. And I just ask any youth that are watching or that are here, it is really important for you to stand up and to advocate for yourselves. And don't think that adults don't pay attention to you. It might seem like that because for years that's probably what happened. But now, with all the distractions and everything that's going on in our communities, it's time for you, us adults, to really open our eyes and open our ears to what you say are important. and I'm just so glad to see so many youth come out. And I'm especially glad for this young brother showing me that youth are really paying attention. Thank you.
The children shall lead. Representative Nuccio, a new member of JJPOC.
Yes, thank you. This is not my, well, I guess it's kind of my first meeting. We had the like thing over the summer, but this is probably my first official meeting. And I know we spoke last year about Compass. And youth initiatives like this are important everywhere. They're vitally important in our cities. They're also, as you mentioned, sir, how do we get it out into the municipalities? You know, that smaller towns are not, you know, it's not, it's just, I don't know, it's a myth, I guess, that people think that stuff like this doesn't happen in small town Connecticut. And I can assure you, coming from small town Connecticut, it does. Not at the volume, but it does. So I'm very happy to hear you say, you know, we need to talk to the municipalities and, you know, we need to look to the more affluent communities to see what the differences are. How can we foster that? You know, how can we, you know, I grew up very poor. I grew up in a town that was, you know, high violence town. I'm justice impacted, et cetera, et cetera. Not a big city, but it happens everywhere, right? And it's very easy to become what is now being classified as a disconnected youth. There are certain things that you said that, like the raise the age, the things that have happened. I was not here when all that happened. But I can tell you, I guarantee you, any legislator up here, you can raise your hand. We hear about youth involved in criminal activity. You mentioned stolen cars and stuff like that, right? And it's always the argument that, well, it's still happening, it's still happening. And we have to evolve, as you're saying. And I know you specifically mentioned seeing, you know, I'm a note taker, so I'm writing everything down here, but you specifically mentioned seeing that the increase in violent crime with homicides and carrying weapons and stuff like that. And if we're seeing an uptick, what are we doing to change what we're doing to bring that back down, right? So that's what's important to me, is we may have seen like a downtick over here in these things, so that's working, right? But now we're seeing this uptick over here, and it's more severe crime. It's stuff that, you know, we're hearing about, we're seeing again. You're not seeing it in just the cities, you're seeing it everywhere. And we have to broaden that conversation to look at that. But what are your organizations doing to kind of flow with that? You know, go from the lesser crimes that you were seeing and the context that you're building in the community to these major, much bigger crimes that you're not going to get a smack on the wrist. You're not going to get, you know, a home care program. You're going to go to jail. So what do we do? How are we ebbing and flowing with that?
That's a longer conversation.
I know, I'm
That's a
new.
much
You
longer
asked a
conversation.
lot of questions. I'm new, but I
But we-
haven't had the pleasure of meeting all you guys. Only you.
So what you're going to do is you're going to come to every meeting and join our subcommittees, and then you're going to participate. But the thing that I just want to point out something. The thing that really resonated with me was she heard about the upticks in the crimes. Did she hear anything about the things that have gotten better?
Yes, I have. And I said that, you know, I've definitely, like, looking at the de-escalating incidents and the stuff that, you know, the community involvement, those are all great things, right? And we're managing the lower level stuff with that, right? But you celebrate the small wins, but you have to look at what is the next step. Like, we're talking about social media, we're talking about the fighting and stuff like that. So we have to escalate. We have to escalate with what we're seeing is what's the next step? Like, how do we get that next batch of kids? Like, whether it's my sibling wants to be part of this program, you know, that's the lower level. That's great. How do we get those kids in there? But how do we take it out of the headlines? How do we all stop getting those phone calls and about the higher level stuff? I think a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here is great, but especially when we start to hear there's more female involved, more women involved, more violence, more knives and stuff like that, we haven't reached them.
Yeah.
Right. So how do we,
I
what's
think
the next step?
I think the part of the problem is that the press highlights the bad things.
Well, we all know that.
And we don't hear about the good things. We don't hear about the scholarships that are happening in the schools. We don't hear about the kids that actually are doing the after-school programs that are going to enrich their communities, or the kids that are over in Common Ground that are learning about farming and things like that. So we have to blame our media a little bit for that. Yes, Ms. Samuels?
Look, I'm just gonna say for the record, I don't think we have a budget problem. I think we have an accountability problem, right? We poured this money in. We had historical amounts of money poured in through the post-pandemic. Post-pandemic has shown us the vulnerabilities before. So the kids that were already in the cracks were really in the cracks in pandemic. So it's hard for me to sit here and say, we don't know. And I appreciate you, Dr. Tillman, because we know. That's number one. Number two, I had a call this morning with CSSD, Court Support Service Division. And I asked about the RFP process because we need to know how this money moves and where it needs is going and where we saying it's going. And it's not doing, because then they made a very important observation. They said we don't have enough reentry programs. So I'm confused when you're saying we got some compass and we got this going on, and I'm sitting with the administration over our grants who say we don't have enough programs. So then number one, then the question becomes, are we holding our programs accountable? Because some of the people that were supposed to get grants didn't get grants because they weren't handling their business. But we don't want to say that, right? So we need to say that, go home, fix our houses, see where our deficits are. It's not a judgment call, it's a reality call. It may mean, that's why we got high turnover. Are we looking at the staff that's there? It's no shade, doesn't mean you're not good and bad. These are high risk, high needs, require certain skill sets. Right? So what I'm saying to Bridgeport, New Haven, Hartford, check your houses. See who you hiring. See what's going on. Because we don't have a budget problem. I don't care what nobody say, especially when they're telling us. And then number two, I'm asking us, this body, to look at the racial equity lens. Because if you don't have enough processes, let's say you don't have enough programs, and let's say you're not handling your program, somebody else gonna get that grant because they're short on funding, or not. No, I'm gonna say that short on quality of services. So they're going to give it to some folk that may not can meet your needs. So I'm saying to the Black and brown urban communities, handle your business, clean house, see what's doing well, hold yourselves accountable, because the state needs to hold you accountable too. And that's not happening. Last but not least, I took my own dime and visited Springfield, Massachusetts. Hampton County has been identified as a national model. Them folk working while they in jail. You understand? They coming out contributing. They're coming out with skill sets. We're letting them out, hoping they find it. Now I've met people that are reentry. They're saying when they're coming out, this gentleman was right. He said, we're not streamlining. So these folk are coming out from the incarceration, not having access to their medical, not knowing their medications. Some of them are in there because they weren't on their medication. So you're going to let them out with no medication. And then you're going to shock that they're back in. So we're doing this. So it's not about, I don't think it's not about conversations. We have enough courageous conversations. We need the courageous actions. And
Thanks.
part of that means holding ourselves accountable. So
Thank you.
at least.
Thank you.
And
Thank
let's
you.
see this April 27th in
Yep.
Meredith. We're holding a meeting for those that are coming out of the system. 1 to 3 p.m. Stay tuned for details so we can know what's happening in real time.
Send it to us and we'll post it for you.
Got it. Thank you, ma'am.
Wait,
That's it.
Ray? I'm sorry. Wait, I'm just gonna say right now, Ray, this young man over here has a statement over here.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ray.
Ms. Samuel, Representative Samuel, when I came home,
No, she's not representative.
oh, not representative. Okay,
No,
Ms.
no,
Samuel, okay.
No,
All
no,
right.
no.
Okay.
No.
Ms. Samuel, I was released from the penitentiary 2 years, 4 months, and 6 days ago after serving 30 years. I've never held a legal job in my life prior to that time. When I came home to the city of New Haven, there was a lack of resources in the city of New Haven for me. I remember vividly applying for some public assistance because I wanted to be, as a grown man, a contributing factor into my home as I was looking for employment. I was denied food stamp services. because of my zip code at that time. And this is why I thought about starting Next Level Empowerment Program, because I knew that there were entities that exist, but there were no tangible services to go along with them. I've worked without a budget since I came home to make sure that the men and women that followed me home after their terms of incarceration was supported, whether it be emotionally, socially, or financially by me. When I first came home, I was working in Lewis Real Estate Services in West Hartford. And I used whatever dimes that I had left over after gas, money, and rent to support my peers that were coming home after me. Then I transitioned to Yale New Haven Hospital as patient transportation, and then over to Yale Law School as a program manager there. All the while doing everything, just volunteering my services, because I know that this is where my passion lie. Fast forward to today, even working with Deputy Warden Tammy and Warden Michael Pears at Manson Youth Correctional Facility. All my services are volunteer. It's not about a budget to me when lives are on the line. I'm passionate about this work. I'll continue to do this work. And there's also, in doing this work, there's a space at Next Level Empowerment Program for the families of those that are incarcerated and those that are in the community that haven't been impacted by the criminal justice system to partake in some of the things that we're doing, because we're about preventative measures, not just dealing with individuals that have come home after terms of incarceration. That's why in developing the name for the program, I decided to leave reentry out of the name of my program, because it's a distaste in the mouths of those that are not receiving the services.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you. Young man?
This is
No, you got to get close and you got to give us outside voice, baby.
okay. So this is a comment about the things that we're talking about, the 169 towns. I think you guys should do more outreach communities, because outreach projects, because I think trying to email them is not the way. They're just gonna be like, okay, these guys are just trying to bring me up here. But instead of that, I think you guys should just show them what you're really trying to do to their face, instead of just trying to
No emails.
email.
Thank you. There's another young man right there. Okay, I'm gonna get to you in a minute. The kids first. Yeah, I got you.
Building on what Representative Tony Walker.
You got to talk louder, baby boy.
My name is Josiah Green.
Uh-huh.
And I'm building on what Representative Tony Walker said. You were talking about how, well, this is building on what Leonard said as well. He said that it takes 6 months to build a bond, and then you only have 1 year of grant money. And you were speaking about how we need to build connections. Building connections with police department and things like that. There's programs out there that build connections with young kids. Like me and my friends, we go to PAL, which is run by the police department, and we go there for boxing and other things. And that's something quick that we can do after school instead of just going straight home. And then there's other things like basketball that they do there, and they're just YMCA and programs like that. So I don't think that there's not that many programs. There's programs out there, just how do you get to know them? And building on what Miss Gwendolyn said over there, you were
Miss Gwendolyn, be quiet. Go ahead.
You were saying that they do have the grant money, but some places don't have grant money. They could just be doing what they can with what they have. We really don't know what's going on in the inside. When we go to boxing, they have the grant money and everything to do what they can, and that's what they're doing. But other places like YMCA and things like that are just holes in the wall. Last time I went to the YMCA near Blue Hills Avenue, it was next to Weaver, and the bathroom was all messed up, and things like that were just broken down, and they didn't have the money to fix it up at the time. So I don't think it's just a thing to say, oh, they have the money. It's just they don't want to work on it. What if they just don't have the money and they're trying their best to work on it?
Thank you. All right, wait, I thank you. Let's give him, yeah, come on. Our youth, yes. Our adults, no. Okay. The young lady down there, then Senator, and then Representative Porter, and then we're going to let Dr. Tillman close us out. So less than 60 minutes.
I'll talk fast.
Okay.
Renee Smino, I am currently the Director of Delinquency Defense and Child Protection. I've been a public defender for 28 years. I am proud to say that I've worked with Mr. Jihad and CTVIP. I've worked with him when he was in adult court. He's in juvenile court. He knows how to make the connections with the kids. His group is amazing. Not only have they come to arraignments, sentencings, they've gone to PPTs. They are they have holistic mentorship, and I'm proud to be associated with him. We've worked on some community engagement. We've done a fundraiser together. So I just want to say thank you to everybody and a shout out to New Haven. Next time, bring some of the kids. I want to see some New Haven kids here, but thank you again. And thank everybody for everything that you do.
Thank you, thank you. Senator?
Thank you. I'd like to thank all the panelists for coming out, most importantly, all the students. I think it's important to have your guys' voices heard here. And I look forward to more of that. I had the privilege of speaking with a lot of the agencies that we're talking about, HVIP, Wake Up Wednesday, Credible Measure Program, Amanda Brown. We have had several meetings and talked about the success in California and bringing it here. And I think it's a phenomenal idea. I'll make the question quick here because I have another one and I know that I'll be pressed for time. How often are you guys communicating, all the great organizations that do all of the great work, to say, hey, we do this well, we have this resource? How often are you guys meeting as heads of these organizations and trying to help each other out? I know Wake Up Wednesdays, they're out there in the rain, the cold, they have a tent. And they're out there in the streets all the time. What's going on at that level of communication?
I can say that collaborative is in our name for a reason. I'm under no illusions that Compass can do this by themselves. And so not only are we partnering with institutions such as hospitals, the police department, schools, we're also partnering with nonprofits. So I have regular communication with CTVIP and others in Hartford. I just went to Wake Up Wednesdays this past week. I think that it's important for us to have regular conversations. It's really about, I think if I would say that there's an area for improvement, it's about really identifying common goals and working towards those together with, data at the table, with budgets at the table, with those kinds of things. And sometimes that it becomes difficult for organizations to do when they have to really, there's no incentives or grants that help us to work towards the work together. It's about what the funder wants us to complete. And so we're working to meet the obligations of a funding source rather than actually working together towards goals that we've created as an entity. Also, going back to, it's not always about funding, but it is largely about funding. Restricted dollars restrict you. They don't allow you to address the problems that you're seeing, but rather what the funder has identified as an issue that you need to resolve. And
We're
so
working on
as
that,
long
Jack.
as we're working
on
with
that.
those parameters, it really makes partnership a secondary thing. And you really have to go out of your way to create those partnerships, which depletes your ability to work collaboratively all of the time with other organizations. But I know it's a necessity, and we do it all of the time because we need to build these networks so that our youth have a safety net to rely on and they're not falling through the cracks. But I can tell you that as good as we're doing, I know that there's always room for enhancements, and I look forward to doing more of it.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Hopefully we can look to untie your hands there and be able to use the money where you see fit. I know that you may have to follow up on what she said, but I know you did a phenomenal job of raising a lot of money in a small amount of time. How much of that came from the cities? You guys do a great job of representing your communities. How much funding do you guys get from your actual cities to run the great organizations and do the great work you do? Can you elaborate on that?
Percentages.
Currently, I'm sorry?
Percentages.
Percentages, yes. Currently, it's about 10% of our budget.
Yeah, I would say in New Haven, it's a little bit higher. It's probably about 20 to 25% of our budget. We have about 4 or 5 different contracts with City of New Haven, and also the town of Hamden.
Excellent. And then just my last question, I know that we're pressed for time, but we're talking about gun violence. And we have a great resource here that's all over the United States and seeing things firsthand. What's a solution to get these guns off the streets? I talk to parents in New Haven and, parents take away the weapon from a 14-year-old and they're getting another one the next day. It's like they're getting a candy bar. How do we address that? I'll say it again. Having you here as a resource, just want to ask the question. We're talking about the violence on the streets. We're talking about gun violence specifically. I was talking to a lot of parents, a friend of mine personally, and he has had a 14-year-old child. And the child would have a gun and he would take it away and he would get another one within days. How do we address that?
That's a much longer story.
It's not,
Go ahead, it's up.
it's not even about it being it's a complex question because I can give you a generic answer, but I don't know the child. What are the underlying issues that makes this child feel as though he has to have a gun in order to feel safe? So if I can if I had an opportunity to sit down with that child and unpack what's really going on, is he being bullied? Does he have challenges in the community? Is it safe for him to go to school? Is he involved in a gang? Is he involved in illegal activity? So there are several nuanced questions that I would have to ask to unpack to really give you the answer. And how important is my child to me? Because if my child is in a space where the only way he feels safe is if he's armed, then maybe it's time for me to move. So it can be addressed, but it's deeper than me just telling my son, don't pick up a gun. I'm gonna give you a scenario, right? Throughout my life, I had 3 convictions. 2 of them were unlawful use of a weapon, which later got threw out. But my attorney asked me, he was like, you know you're going to get off probation if you just don't get a gun again. In my mind, I'm going to get a gun as soon as we leave here because there's some people trying to kill me. If I don't go get a gun, then it won't be nobody to represent. So we got to think logically. If somebody's trying to harm or kill this child, yeah, when his dad take the gun, he probably feel like I got to get a gun because these guys after me. We don't know what he done in the community. So if we could unpack and find out those answers, we'll be able to find that. But it's an issue with the child that goes far beyond him just wanting to get a gun to ride around with. I don't believe that. That don't even make common sense.
No, I didn't say he was getting to ride around. He actually was fearing for his life.
Right.
But the parent just couldn't get up and move. And I understand it's a complicated question, but that's a hard response to give to a parent. Because the conversation I had with him was, I'll keep taking them away, but I got to a point where if everyone else had one, maybe he should have one. That's a terrible thing for a parent to accept, and they didn't have the money just to move out of the city. So, but maybe we could talk offline because I'd love to have a further conversation with you on this bigger issue.
Real issue was,
Yep.
we got to have a heart. It goes down to the relationship between the parent and the child. Then I got to say, son, you got to tell me what's really going on because that's the only way you can help anybody if they tell you the truth.
I'm going to jump in because I said there's brevity. Sorry. Thank you, Senator. Yes, brevity, and we've got to get out of the building, okay? A representative after him, after her? Yeah, after him.
I just wanted to say briefly, I'm new here. My name is Curtis Eller. I'm here representing Commissioner Higgins out of our desk office.
He texted me and said you were here. I was like, "Ooh."
Absolutely. But I want to first applaud all of you that are here. A little bit about my background. I came from Stratford, where I worked in Powell for my 26-year career. And our main purpose there was to give back and to create opportunities like you guys are talking about. And the main, Dr. Tillman, many things you said, and all you said today struck me, but one of the things you said was show me the budget. And that's one thing. That's what I learned in Stratford. And the other thing is you have to prioritize this work. And so if you're not making that a priority, and it will show in your budget. And so what I can assure you, I was talking with the commissioner this morning, is this type of work that you all are doing we are prioritizing it from my office, and we are going to work to support these efforts. So I will be brief, but I will be here in the future, and I hope to talk at length with all of you after. Have a good day.
Rep Porter.
Thank you. First, thank you to everyone that came today. Each of the panelists, I mean, like it hit home, right? A lot of it is lived experience for me. And a lot of things have been said, but I think the main thing is when we talk about budgets, you hit it dead on. One of the hardest things, I want to say the hardest thing, being a lawmaker in this building, in this state, representing an underrepresented community, right? The city of New Haven, I represent, my district has the highest crime rate in the entire city. And I come in this building and I advocate for what I know is needed, what I know works, right? Because the people closest to the problems are closest to the solutions, but oftentimes furthest from the power. So as someone with some power, my effort to empower them is to bring them back home what they need. And it's resources, it's funding. And I just can't understand for the life of me how the communities that are in greatest need in this state get the least. And we have to, right? Keep talking about the crabs in the barrel. We have to fight over the crumbs. And that shouldn't be the case, because when we lift from the bottom, guess what happens? Everybody's elevated. Even the people in the middle, the people at the top, everybody is elevated when you lift from the bottom. And a lot of people look at our communities and they look at our children and all they see is the problems and the bad things. Like Rep Walker said, a lot of it is not televised when we do well, because that's not what the media likes to hype. And it creates fear, and that fear continues to monger, and it puts a stranglehold on us when we try to get what we need to lift these kids and these families up out of poverty. Poverty is what drives this. You want to know how to get the guns out their hands and to stop the crime and to stop the killing? Make sure people have livable, sustainable wages, right? Make sure that they have affordable housing. Make sure that they have whole foods in their community and not corner stores and liquor stores. We have created communities that are conducive to crime. And then we sit here trying to solve it like we don't know what the solution is. You said it. We have communities that do exceedingly and abundantly well. We don't need to recreate the wheel. We don't have to rewrite this book. We know what works. Education. I have kids in my district that are graduating from 12th grade illiterate. I have 6th graders reading on a kindergarten level. What are you going to get out of them? We have to invest. When you make an investment, you yield an interest. And we are not investing in these communities. And then we want to scratch our head and act like we don't understand why there's no interest coming from that. You get out of them what you put in them. And when children are crying out for help, you don't push them out, you pull them in. And I'm speaking as a mother and a grandmother. And if my 7-year-old 2nd grade grandson was in crises, you better believe I'm calling the village. Credible messengers, that's what I call y'all, the village, because that's really what it is. It's the village. And we got to bring that back. And our communities do need to take some responsibility here, but the government and these policies, poverty is a policy choice. The issues that we are discussing here today are policy choices. What do we need to do? We need to change the choices we're making. And that's not on the communities that we're out here fighting for. That is on us. The power lies in our hands as lawmakers. It is our responsibility to make sure we're taking home the bacon. And it shouldn't be bacon that we're fighting over, right? We can't live off of crumbs. You can't, I mean, think about substance for your body. If you're not eating good, healthy food, what are you going to get? Guess what? Hypertension, diabetes, cancer, lupus, the things that are running rampant in our communities, environmental justice. It's all intersectional. So at the end of the day, I say we really have to get past what we've been talking about, because we've been talking about this forever. It is time to put boots on the ground where the rubber meets the road, roll up your sleeves and get it done. And you can't be afraid of these kids. You cannot. Jahad, you mentioned it. I was at Panera. When Panera was shutting down after school, they would close for hours because these kids were coming out of Hampton High School wreaking havoc. And you know what stopped them from wreaking havoc? Community members, local and state officials showing up and taking up space. I'm watching you. You was raised better than that, and you're not going to do that on my watch. You're going to act right or you're going to leave here. And better yet, a lot of them didn't even know. I knew their parents or their grandparents. I'm going to call your mama. Uh-oh. It still works, y'all. It still works. We just got to get back to doing what we were having done to us when we were kids. Amen. We've gotten disconnected, disjointed, and this pandemic has done us no favors, right? It has desocialized us even further, disconnected us and disengaged us, marginalized us and criminalized us. We are criminalizing childhood behaviors. And we got to level the playing field for real. Where is the equity in this? Because the scales of justice are not equal. So you're right, we're going to tell the truth, but it ain't just the kids telling us the truth. It's us telling one another the truth because we got to live with this thing. And if we want everybody to be well and prosper, then everybody has to pitch in. And we have to put the money where the greatest need is, period. Thank you so much.
Dr. Tillman, you want to bring it home?
Just want to bring it home with an African proverb. The child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. That's it.
I want to thank everybody that participated. You know what really is funny? I was thinking about this. This is the Final Four. You know how UConn starts out real slow, and then by the fourth quarter it's kicking butt. Well, that's what happens in JJPOC. I wish we'd do a little bit better than that. Let's start on at least the second half, okay? But thank you all for everybody. And I think that one of the things I got out of this was that we definitely need community service committee in JJPOC, and I think the young lady over there in the pink is a good person for a chair. So we're gonna have to talk about that. Yeah. You said you collaborate. Okay, we're gonna collaborate. But anyhow, and our next meeting is what did you say? Okay, April 18th. So I thank you all. This was really good. You made me feel good. You really did because you put your heart in your conversation.